All right, hello everyone. We're gonna get started with the workshop. If you can't hear me, just put something in the chat, or if you have any questions at any time, also just message in the chat. My name is Christy, and we'll be learning about VS Code and Markdown today. Oops. So during this workshop, it is expected that you are able to follow along, so make sure you have VS Code installed if you don't already. You can just follow this link, code.visualstudio.com, and click download, and then it'll take you through the process of installing the application. And also, so right after this workshop is going to be the faculty fireside, which we just want to plug as another ACM event. So definitely check that out. We will be ending before 7, so you should be able to do both. And here's the link to the slides. README, which has all the code and notes for this workshop, as well as our membership portal attendance code. I'll just put all of those in the chat as well. All right, if you still need to see the slide, raise your hand on Zoom. All right, if everyone is ready to continue, I'm gonna change the slide. So yeah, today we're going to talk about Markdown and VS Code. So what is Markdown? Markdown is a markup language, which means that it's just text, like meant to be viewed by people, but it has some annotations to describe what the formatting should be. So HTML is also another markup language. That's what the ML stands for. But it is not very readable. Like if you were to read an HTML page, it's like, it doesn't seem that friendly, like there's a lot of brackets everywhere, but the difference is that Markdown is designed so that if you are just looking at Markdown syntax, it's supposed to look just like if the formatting was actually there. So like, for example, bold is written with 2 asterisks, and that like kind of indicates like more emphasis, just like bold does. So where can you find Markdown in the wild? Some like places you might not expect is that some like Markdown variations are used in Slack and Messenger. So if you want to send a code block in Slack, you use the same syntax as in Markdown. But the main place that you'll find Markdown is usually in READMEs, which README is in a software project. You'll have a file called README, and that means where you'll describe the project and how to run the project. And if you see the .md file like ending, then that means it's a Markdown file. And we also use Markdown in all our workshop notes. So when we say like, oh, check out our README, it's just the notes for the workshop in Markdown file. And VS Code is a text editor, but it has like a lot of nice features, which we'll be going over in this workshop. Cool thing about VS Code is that it's open source. So it's made by Microsoft. So if you go on GitHub, you can actually see the code that VS Code uses. So that's pretty cool. And you can like file issues and things like that. All right, so let's write some Markdown. If you don't have VS Code installed, again, this is the link. So make sure it is installed so you can follow along. Yeah, so I have VS Code open already. I'm gonna make a new file. So to make a new file in VS Code, it is Command-N on Mac or Control-N on Windows. You can also say File, New File. And I'm gonna save this file as, let's say session5.md. So make sure you have the .md extension to indicate that's a markdown file. And you can save it wherever you want. I'm gonna save it wherever I'm right now. All right, and let's write some markdown. So this is from a markdown reference sheet that is linked in the README. I'll just point it out. So yeah, so everything we'll be going over is in this reference sheet. And also in this file called markdown.md, which you can see the raw code that looks like this. So everything we'll be doing is on GitHub in case you missed something. So first we have headers. They look like this. You can either write it this way, so a hashtag space and then whatever header like that you want to write, or you can also write it like this with an underline looking thing. So right now this is our markdown syntax, but to see what it would look like after it's like processed to HTML and you can view it in the browser, then it will look like, then you can press Command-Shift-P or Control-Shift-P to open the command palette in VS Code, and then type markdown open preview to side. So I'm gonna hit enter on that, and then you can see on the side what the markdown will look like. So see, we have 2 headers. And you can also do smaller headers. You have H2, it goes all the way up to H6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the alternate syntax for H2 is with dashes, a dash underline. You can put as many as you want. It just looks like a heading. Next, we have ways to emphasize text. So we have italics, which look like this. They are with asterisks. You also have underscore. Both these are the same thing for italics. We have bold, which is 2 italics, or 2 underscores. You can also have something bold and italics. I don't know exactly why you would want to do this. Like just for the extra emphasis. So if you see here, italics and bold. Next, we have lists. So first, our ordered lists. It's just a numbered list, second list item. The interesting thing is that you don't actually need to number them. Like if I put 1, 2, 1, 1, 1 on the left, you'll see the output. It still says 1, 2, 3. So the only number that matters is the first number, and then all the other numbers will be consecutive numbers. Lists can also have sublists, so I can do for sublist item like this. Next we have unordered lists, which are just bullets. So you can either write them with dashes or asterisks or pluses. So they're all the same. But they do, like, notice that they do create separate bullet lists. Like they're a little separated if you use 2 different bullet symbols. Next, we have links. So to create a link, we have in square brackets the link text, and then in the round brackets in parentheses, we can put a link. So I'm going to copy one over, and then if you click on this link, it'll open the, in this case, github.com/Microsoft/VSCode. In a similar style, you can also do images. So, but instead of instead of link text, you just write a description of the image, and then you put the link to the image in the parentheses. So I'm going to pick this puppy image. Puppy opens its eyes for the first time. And copy the image address and put it in the parentheses, and then it'll show up. Ooh, and then notice this exclamation point. And then in the square brackets, you want to put a description of the image, and this is important because it's the alt text, which is used by screen readers to say what the image is. Next, this is really nice in Markdown, and this is like what you would use in, let's say you want to copy some code over to Slack. You would use these backticks to indicate a code block. So notice here, code block. And the backtick is located on top of the tab key, in case you haven't. Like, you don't really use backticks for most things, but you do use it here. If you want to write something inline, then you use single backticks. And also, not all things in Markdown will be able to do this, or like not all Markdown processors, but you can also say a language, and then it will be able to do syntax highlighting. So notice here that this code block has like colors because you told it was JavaScript. And yeah, so the VS Code Markdown processor does syntax highlighting, and so does the GitHub one. So that's cool. Next, we have tables. So tables look like this. Vertical bars. So the spaces in between the vertical bars don't really matter. And you actually don't need the first vertical bar or the last vertical bar either. Oops, what's going on? And then let's put some items in our table. And again, the spaces between the items doesn't really matter. But it does make it look nice, and like a key thing about Markdown is that it looks readable, so it is recommended to have like nice spaces. And we can also, it's a little bit hard to tell because I think on dark mode, the lines don't really show up because I think they're black. But we can also center items. So for example, like this, we add these colons, and then the items will be centered in that column. And then you can also right align them by doing only one colon. Next, we have block quotes. So this is what a block quote looks like, and you can quote someone else saying something. If you just want like some text that looks different. In email, actually, you might have seen these arrows for like replies, and the reason is because in Markdown it represents a quote. In addition, you can also use HTML in Markdown. In most uses of Markdown, the Markdown will be converted to HTML, which will then be like viewed. So I'm going to use an image tag. So I actually prefer using image tags a lot more than the Markdown style of using, of creating images. Because you can change the height. So I'm going to make this a small puppy. It'll be a 10 pixel puppy. So yeah, this is like my preferred way of doing images as opposed to this one. Oh, and also don't forget the alt text. We have horizontal rules, so you can do it with asterisks underneath, or you can also do it with underscores. It's the same thing. And lastly, at this point, you've seen like different paragraphs. So if you do 2 new lines, you can get 2 paragraphs. But if you want to do the same paragraph, but with but on separate lines, yeah, so if I only do 1 new line, it will not show up at all. So what you have to do is add either a backslash, which will cause the line to be on separate lines, or you can also do 2 spaces. I guess the 2 spaces is, you can't always see it, so I think the backslash way is preferred. Okay, so that is all the Markdown we'll be talking about. Next, I'll be discussing different features of VS Code. So something I really like in VS Code is the built-in terminal, which you can open by doing terminal on the top bar, terminal, new terminal. And then you'll get a terminal here. So then you don't have to like switch between your text editor and your terminal because it's just on the same screen, which is really nice. And the shortcut for this is Control backtick or Control tilde, which again is on top of the tab key. Another thing I really like in VS Code is the Git integration. So the Git integration, or like the source control tab, is this one. It's also Control-Shift-G. And it shows you all the changes that you've made. So, okay, this one's not a good example, but let's open. Oh yeah, also to open files, which is really useful, is Command P, and then you can search for a file and open it. So I'm gonna change. I'm gonna change this to like OO. And then if I save it, then I can see the change. So it'll show you what was deleted on the left side and what was added on the right side. So that I think is really neat. And then once you review, oh, also a note is that this is not like VS Code magic. Like this will not work unless you are in a Git project. So you did like Git init, or like you cloned a Git project and you have a .git folder. So if you have the .git folder, then what VS Code does is it looks inside of it, it like reads all the information, and then it displays it in a nice way like this. Anything you can do in VS Code, like Git integration, like you can definitely do on the command line. Like this is the same thing pretty much as like git diff, but I think it looks a lot better. So yeah, so let's say you are working on a project and you made a change, and after reviewing it by looking at the diff, you like it, so you can stage the change, which is like git add, by clicking this plus button. So I'm going to click it. And this is the same thing as saying git add readme.md. And this is also nice because like you can decide, oh, I don't want to commit everything because this is something I don't want to commit. So once you're happy with what you want to commit, you can commit it by entering a message up here. I'm gonna call it hello, and then you just hit Command Enter, and then it will commit. Neat. Another thing I really like about VS Code's Git integration is it helps with merge conflicts. So I'm gonna show how that works. On this project, oops. Okay, just go back to the link README. So the project that I have on my VS Code right now is the same project as this one. This is a section that you won't be able to follow along because unless you have your own Git project. So I'm gonna make a change here from GitHub. So that will not be on my local computer. So this is only on GitHub. This is like simulating as if someone else made a change to the same line that I just made. And all right, so now if I try to push, so the way to push from VS Code is to go to this ... menu and then click push. But I don't actually prefer doing that because like the errors look kind of weird and they're not pretty. So I usually like to push from the terminal. Like I like to do things like pull and push, anything except for adding committing from the terminal. Yeah, so notice if I try to push, then it will give me errors because there are some changes here that are not on my local computer. So first, as it says, you should try using git pull. So what git pull does, as a review, it fetches whatever is in GitHub, puts on your local computer, and then tries to merge what is on GitHub with what is on your local computer. So I did that, and then there's a conflict because I made a change on a line that is also changed on GitHub. So yeah, isn't this so pretty? Like on VS Code, it will highlight what is the current change, the one that I wrote on my local computer, oh whoa, and then it'll show you what the incoming change is. Like there's XD right there. And you can click one of the choices. You can accept both changes, compare changes, like accept current change. Like this is a very simple example, but I think this is way easier to read than if there's no colors. And I'm gonna choose to accept current change, and then it just automatically does that change. If there's multiple, you can like go through and see every place that is highlighted in colors. And then after, you have to save, and then after saving, you stage the change, and then you commit it. And then you will be able to push because you resolve the conflict. Yay! So I really like resolving merge conflicts in VS Code. I would say like before VS Code, I like didn't even understand what merge conflicts were. All right. Lastly, we'll be talking about extensions. So in the tab that looks like these 3 blocks and one more block, we have VS Code extensions. There's like a ton of them, but I'm going to point out a few fun ones. Oops. first, we on the topic of Git, there's Git lens. So you can search up Git lens and then install it. Well, I've already installed it, but otherwise I would say install here. And there's a lot of things Git lens does, but the one that like stands out to me is like it tells you who has written what. So for example, I'm going to open a file that I know I didn't write. Let's open main.txt. And you can see here, it says Galen Wong 24 days ago is author of this file. And then it also tells you line by line. So example, this line says Galen Wong 25 days ago, and then also the commit, which is LaTeX workshop in it. So this is super useful if you're working on a project with a lot of people, like on your job, and you come across some code that you have no idea what it means, like you want to talk to the person who wrote it. This is super useful. It comes from Git because there's Git blame. So this is the Git blame, but it's nice to have it like just pretty right there. Like it's very useful. Quick way to see who wrote a particular line. It also shows down here on the bottom toolbar. So in our first tooling series session, we learned about Vim, which is a very old text editor with like people are in love with Vim. So there's also a Vim extension. There's also a NeoVim extension. I'm not really sure how that one works, but both of them are Vim emulations. So a lot of the features that you like in Vim, like pressing undo, U for undo, or like going up or down. I'm not like super good at Vim, so this is hard for me. But you can install this one, and then it will be like you're in Vim. So if you press J, then you'll go down, and K, you'll go up. So if you love Vim, but you still want to use VS Code, then we have VS Code Vim. Next, I am a big fan of formatters. So these are things that automatically format your code. I have a few or a lot of like languages come with formatters. Like for example, the Python extension comes with a formatter. It really depends on the language. For JavaScript and like web dev stuff, I really like Prettier, which is a opinionated code formatter that enforces a consistent style. So I'm just gonna demonstrate it. So I'm gonna create a new file, a JavaScript file, call it like hello.js, and then let's write some JavaScript. Const hello. Yeah, and since a feature that I like in VS Code is format on save. So I want it so that whenever I save, it automatically formats. So to do this, I can go to settings. To go to settings, you click Command-Shift-P again to open the command palette, and then do Preferences, Open Settings UI. There's also settings in JSON, and this is used if you want to like save your settings to GitHub or something, or like a lot of extensions will sometimes like provide you what the JSON settings will look like. So this is where you would do that. But I'm going to look up this settings UI because I can search. So I like the setting format on save. I'm going to search for that. I'm going to hit check on that. And then this is a little bit unrelated, but I also like the autosave, which is you can decide when, but I like on focus change. So then you can, if you are running a file, but sometimes you forget to save and then you don't know why it's not working, it's because you forgot to save. But if you have the autosave on whenever you change tabs, then you'll never have to worry about that. So I like that one too. So just to demonstrate that, now if I save, it will format it like this in the rules that Prettier says it should be. Yeah, so notice if I like change it like this, it'll just automatically be like that. But notice if I write something that's syntactically incorrect, so I'm not allowed to have const and hello on different lines. If I save now, oh wait, just kidding. I guess I am. There's definitely worse things. Okay, let's say I don't think you're allowed to do this. If never mind. It's too powerful. Okay, well, sometimes if you write syntactically incorrect things, it's not going to format because it doesn't know what you're writing. So that's also kind of nice because then if you save and nothing changes, then you probably wrote something syntactically incorrect. Okay, next we have Markdown all-in-one. And this is for Markdown. I think it's also a Markdown. It also has a Markdown formatter. It has keyboard shortcuts. So if you want to do bold, it's Command B or Control B. Helps with table of contents, things like that. And it also helps with LaTeX. So you can also write some LaTeX. Oops. And then if I look in the open preview to side, you can, oh man, something. Oh wait, it's because I didn't enable the extension, haha. Okay, now it's enabled. And I'm gonna, and now you can see the LaTeX. It's there in the preview. So that is with Markdown all-in-one. And lastly, this is a really cool extension called Live Share. Which is like Google Docs, but for code. So this brings us to the interactive section of our workshop. So yeah, install Live Share on your VS Code right now, because I'm going to be making a live share session. So once you have it installed, you'll have this tab, and then you can start collaboration sessions or join. So I'm going to start one. My invitation link was copied to the clipboard. Yay. Okay, I'm going to drop it in the chat. And then if you click on the link, or I think you need, click on the link or copy it to a browser, then it'll prompt you to open VS Code, and then, or like once you have the extension, and then if you have never used it before, you also have to sign in with GitHub or Microsoft. So sign into that, and then whenever it prompts you to like open VS Code again, just click open VS Code, and if it asks you anything, just say okay, and then then you should be able to join to our session. Okay, and also this is important, you will need to, if you right click on participants, by default, you'll be following the host of the session, which is me, Christy Lim. So you need to click unfollow. So right now I'm following Jody. So if Jody like scrolls or something or changes files, I'll follow her. So you have to click unfollow if you want to have control. And also, Jody, if you can unmute everyone so then we can also talk. And then this is our collaborative tutorial. If anyone has any trouble, just like drop it in the chat. You can also just say something, unmute yourself and say something. And yeah, so see, I can see Tim, I can see where everyone is. And then, yeah, so now we can practice writing Markdown. So there's a few different exercises to do, such as like adding to an unordered list, writing an unordered list, writing some links. At the bottom, you can write any Markdown you would like. We're also writing a story about road trips. And that's what we'll be doing for the rest of the session. I'm just going to drop the feedback form, so don't forget to fill out our feedback form. I'm going to paste it in the chat right now.
Timothy Goo, why Don Quixote? I don't accept that.
And if you ever want to see what it looks like in Markdown, don't forget that you can do Command-Shift-P and then open preview to side in order to see what it looks like. If anyone has any trouble joining, just let us know. I'm also going to stop recording.